Hi, and welcome to Civil Discourse Now. My name is Mark Small. I'm co-host of this program with Paul Ogden.
Good morning, Mark.
And good morning to you, Paul. We are coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana, Big Hat Books, located at 6510 Cornell Avenue. Big Hat has a marvelous selection of books. It's locally owned. It's not one of the real big chain stores. They have on sale right now John le Carré's Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. That just came out as a book. I don't know what the copyright on this is. I think it's like 70 or 71 or something. This is the best spy novel ever written. It is really awesome. Gary Oldham is playing in the movie. He was Sirius Black in the Harry Potter movies. But this is a great book. They have space to rent here for special occasions. It's an excellent place to come.
The show is Civil Discourse Now, a show in which we talk civilly, hopefully, about state, local, national, international politics. It's a show where we're trying to bring to the public sphere a discussion where we're not talking over other people and hopefully bring some intellectual capital to the process.
Try to educate, enlighten, learn, whatever. And today, first of all, last week we discussed the right to work laws that were before the General Assembly. Paul, do you want to give us an update, to give our audience an update?
Well, thank you, Mark. We had two guests, excellent guests. What were their names last week, Mark?
Bill Groth and Jeff Cox.
Jeff Cox. And I talked on the issue right to work. Mark Small does not like that term. But it is, I believe it passed out of the Senate. There was an amendment to have it go to referendum. That amendment failed. But it's now moving from the Senate to the House, where they will consider that bill. The referendum amendment could be put back into it at some point, but I think it's probably unlikely that will succeed.
Yeah, but if it were to be put into the bill, it would go before Mitch Daniels, assuming that he's back already from doing his counter speech to the State of the Union,
Correct.
The President of the United States.
And we should point out something else came up this week, and that's something maybe you and I should look into a little bit more. But some people were arguing that the Constitution, the language of the Indiana Constitution, does not allow the final decision to be made through a referendum. And that issue came up. So the Republicans were saying, well, even if we get a referendum, that can't decide the issue.
Now, I don't think the General Assembly has ever been bound by the will of the people on anything. That's beside the point.
Can I just say something that
No.
I don't really like? Civil discourse, huh?
Why don't you introduce the guest first, Mark?
I apologize. I was being rude.
Matt's chomping at the bit.
Sean Shepard, the guest to my left, is Libertarian Party, former candidate for Congress, very active in politics, and a blogger. Matt Stone, former Libertarian Party candidate for City County Council here in Indianapolis, also active blogger on Indy Student. And Sean, what's your blog?
Mine is Shepard Politics. Actually, www.seanshepard.org will get people there.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm not really a big fan of putting stuff to referendum, especially when it comes to legislation that would normally be handled by the General Assembly. When it's some big cost project like a school expansion or even the Worcester referendum, I'm kind of okay with that because that's a lot of money and stuff that the public directly uses. But when it comes to legislation with all the legalities and certain awardings and yada yada yada, we elect these people to make these decisions on our behalf because most people do not have the time to go research these types of legislations, these legalities. They don't know the case law. They can't bring in experts to talk about stuff. And they're just relying on basically whoever wins the war on the media. These ballots, can be worded in a way where basically you're voting against Mom, America, and apple pie. So
And like the Worcester referendum.
Like the Worcester referendum. Or like even in the message California.
It changed its name, and Mark always makes a point of this.
Well,
it's some unpronounceable foreign name.
Yeah. So in other words, you're echoing the views of the framers of the Constitution who were appalled by the notion of the rabble in a democracy making a determination.
Well, and that was the point I was going to make right there. Is there's a more fundamental issue, is that anytime you go to referendum and then it's simple majority, then what you're doing is you allow the majority, the rabble, or whatever, to push their opinion or their desires on the minority. And ultimately, from a legislative perspective, these people that we elect should be trying to maximize property rights. Trying to figure out what do we do in the law that maximizes choice, freedom, and property rights for everybody, rather than forcing people to do one thing or another.
Let's put that down, Mark. Future show, we talk about whether it should have direct democracy, referenda, initiative, that sort of thing. Recall. Indiana does not have recall, which is going on in Wisconsin.
Okay, so future show on democratic values.
Exactly. You can phrase it that way. We had a busy week in politics, Republican politics in particular, where all the heat is coming from. The week started with the announcement that John Huntsman, the former governor of Utah, is dropping out, endorsed Romney. As I said before the show started, that was actually Romney's high point of the week. After that, Rick Perry, Texas governor, dropped out.
And as I pointed out before the show started, both of his supporters were influenced by him to go to support Gingrich.
Right. And so his numbers, obviously Perry's numbers weren't doing very well. He threw his support to Newt Gingrich. Also, too, we had a story out of Iowa as well. Why don't you pick up on that?
Over in the Iowa caucuses, which are basically a glorified straw poll, which is non-binding and really doesn't matter all that much. Mitt Romney was declared the original winner by 8 votes, but it turns out during a recount that Rick Santorum actually got something like 30 more votes than Mitt Romney. Which kind of robbed him of the momentum of being the winner of Iowa.
Yeah, but that has all the effect of having placed a bet with a bookie, and then 6 months later, the team that you lose the bet, the team you bet on gets the game by forfeit because the NCAA finds a rules violation. You can't get your money back from the bookie.
Well, that's true. It does destroy this notion that Mitt Romney a week ago we were looking at Mitt Romney very possibly. It was very realistic. He was going to win 3-0, the first 3 states of the Republican primary, which has never been done since at least the 1980s, maybe before that, by a non-incumbent president.
It never had been.
But now the only state Romney has won is the state that he has essentially lived in since 2006, and that he was supposed to win, and he still won.
By California?
New Hampshire. So now it's 1-1 and question mark, and Romney is dropping in.
It's just like looking at the hockey standings: win, a loss, a tie, and what are these points things? What do they mean on the side?
The Iowa. Should Iowa and New Hampshire play the role they play? Before we move on to South Carolina, let's talk about those 2 states. We had a show, we talked about the election before Iowa. We since have now had the Iowa results, we've had the New Hampshire results. I think you've said in the past, Mark, that these states are not reflective of the population.
I don't think any individual state is reflective enough of the United States as a whole for us to place so much emphasis on them at the beginning of the political process.
I would agree with that.
I think Indiana ought to get in there first and see what we can do then is we can have a bunch of businesses relocate here that do political promotional things. We get all the pollsters to relocate here. That's a lot of jobs.
So you want to steal jobs from other Americans, Mark?
I want to steal jobs wherever it is that Karl Rove hangs his hat. We find out what sweatshop is near him for political polling. We get those people here, and we get them better wages.
Well, Florida moved up their date for their primary, and they lost half their delegates. So I think
all these states have.
Yeah, well,
No, they lost it as a punishment.
Yeah,
the states up.
Right. So I think there's only 50 in play now, and it should have been 100 or something like that.
Well, the big thing with Florida, unlike South Carolina, like New Hampshire, unlike Iowa, is it's winner takes all completely. South Carolina is kind of winner takes all, and New Hampshire is proportional. Iowa is proportional.
Yeah, but see, about us is our primary is so late in the season, everything's being decided anyway. So what if we lose half our delegates? Move it all the way up to the front. Let's get some jobs from these people coming in from out of town. We're not going to be making any money off the Super Bowl, so at least we ought to make something on a regular basis.
I think the important thing about Iowa and New Hampshire isn't so much their demographics, but their size. if we had
size matters.
yes, to put it that way. But if you take states like New York, like California, like Texas, and hold them early, or even in the national primary, then the candidates that are able to financially do that are the establishment candidates. Mitt Romney, Hillary Clinton. There'd be no room for Bill Clinton in 1992 to do something like that. Barack Obama would not have been able to win a Texas primary or a California primary in 2008. With Iowa, Rick Santorum was able to camp out there basically for 6 months, lived there for over a year, and he won. John Huntsman had a decent showing in New Hampshire because he basically lived there.
We're not sure that Santorum won. Because there's still, so don't make that,
but
generalization.
But the point is, these states are small. The media buys are not that expensive compared to these large states of Florida. Basically, unless you are independently rich or have establishment backing, that large states, you just can't run those that early. These states, retail politicking matters still.
Sean, how can we change this system if it is indeed something that should be changed? I think we hear some consensus around the table that this idea of these two small states picking the presidential candidates are not right. How do you change it when every state can do whatever they want to, basically?
Well, and it's not even every state, it's the political parties. I mean, this is really internal political party business being done at whatever schedule they want to do it. Now, my perspective on the political parties is that they are basically quasi-corporate marketing machines. They're not. None of the political parties have as their foundation protecting our freedom in the Constitution. They have as their foundation raising money, keeping people in their party employed, and running candidates for office. So really, we're talking about private marketing organizations who are going to do their own internal business. So how do you go about changing it? I don't know. Should it be the discussion there would be, should there be some top-down edict that says that everybody has to do them all on the same day? Should it remain something from the bottom up, where each state and each party does does it however they want to do it, or however they agree to do it? I kind of like to sit outside of it all because it's
and not take responsibility and leave it up to other people. But the Constitution, I'm not sure how you would do that without changing the Constitution necessarily.
Well,
I think
parties aren't mentioned in the Constitution.
True, but
the framers were appalled by the notion that parties could possibly arise. Madison wrote in Federalist paper, I think it was 51, he excoriated the entire notion of factions, and that's what they considered parties to be.
And Washington opposed factions as well.
So you're saying that the U.S. Constitution, which is silent on the subject, should be interpreted through maybe the Ninth Amendment, which you like to use, Mark, to allow Congress to come in and set times for states.
I think the way you solve this problem.
You invoked the Constitution. I did.
I think the way you solve this problem is you eliminate any legal bias in favor of political parties. I mean, this is no different when we go to vote and it says Republican or Democrat or Libertarian at the top. Really, that's no different than putting that someone belongs to the racquetball club on the corner, or they're a member, they're on what religion they're part of. It's a club.
But it's a Republican Party
It's
has a
basically a
racquetball
club.
club?
I've heard this.
Oh.
You want to talk a little bit about
So you're
that?
saying
Democrats are more tense.
Well, not even so much nonpartisan. It's just that it shouldn't matter what club you belong to, because I think we have plenty of evidence to suggest that belonging to the Republican political club doesn't guarantee that you believe a certain set of things that all line up. Because certainly no one's going to put Mitch Daniels or Richard Murdoch or Ron Paul in the same class as someone like Olympia Snowe or Susan Collins from Maine, or Dick Lugar.
We're out of time for our first segment. We'll be back in just a minute.